it really comes down to your team. Like, who are the people who you know are good and who you can count on? And that's not just your actual team members at your company. That's who are my partners who actually do what they say they're going to do, I can rely on. Like, I can call them, they're going to fix the problems, because at the end of the day, it's so hard to run a business successfully out of your brain. Okay. Like, you're so limited. There's so many things going on in your business. And so if you can outsource so many of the tasks that are fundamental to your business being successful to partners, vendor partners who have your success aligned with their success, you're going to be really successful.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today we have two very special guests on the podcast to talk all things home services and all things as to what they are seeing out there in the market. And I thought no two better people than Mr. Seth from Goodleap and our Director of Sales here at Peterman Brothers, Steve White. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thanks for having us, Chad.
Absolutely. We got through a couple technical difficulties there in the beginning, and we are ready to rock and roll. So I guess before we jump in, maybe it would be good. I'm sure you guys have heard of Seth out there in the industry with Goodleap. I've known him now for quite a few years, which is awesome. He's provided us a ton of useful knowledge and insights into the industry. But why don't we start out, and maybe both of you can kind of give a little bit of your guys' background. Seth, you want to kick us off here?
Sure. I have a background that doesn't make really much sense at all, but it is the background, right? So I started out really not wanting to be in, sales and finance, because my dad was in financial sales. And so I did a law degree and an MBA and an LLM in Chinese law, and lived in China practicing law for about a year or so, and then abandoned the law and ended up working for, Daikin, big manufacturer, for about 6 years before I finally made my way back into finance, where I've worked with most of the major lenders. But the legal background to the business background now in business development and finance. But yeah, I've worked with, I don't know, we were trying to figure this out the other day. I think we had trained roughly 9,000 or 10,000 comfort advisors / selling techs over the last, 6-7 years, been in roughly 1,000 different shops. And when you get exposed to the smartest people in the industry over and over again, you really benefit from it, and you develop a lot of good perspective on that. So that's kind of my background. Now I work with Goodleap.
Awesome. Steve?
Yeah, I started a little bit differently in the education world, graduated from IU and became a 6th grade social studies English teacher for about 6 years, did some athletic directing, decided I wanted to get a master's in education and leadership, and did some athletic directing for 4 of those 6 years, thinking that I was going to be a dean of students or something along those lines. Turns out that wasn't the path that was meant for me. Got out in 2014 and got into distributor wholesale at Habegger, selling HVAC products. And you, being one of my largest customers, decided that a partnership in the HVAC sales management world was something that would be a good partnership for you and I. And so in 2019, I joined the Peterman team and have been directing the sales here ever since. So a little bit of a irregular path to HVAC sales, but here we are.
Awesome stuff. And I think we can jump right in there, especially given your guys' backgrounds. Seth, you've been in a lot of shops. Steve, you were in a lot of shops before coming here. So I have kind of the perspective from both sides of the ball. What do you guys see as you guys go out and either with other companies or things that we've done here? What are you guys seeing that really separates the successful kind of home services companies versus the ones that seem to be always struggling or letting things kind of get in their way as they try to grow their company?
Honestly, it comes down to the leadership. The guy at the top, what's the saying? The fish stinks from the head down. And that's really a function of execution over strategy, right? Like when you talk about strategy versus execution, there's a lot of really bright people out there who have really good ideas and lots of strategies, and then they don't execute on any of them. I can't tell you how many guys I've trained who are like, oh my gosh, we need to do this. This is so important. You call them a month later, they've made zero of the changes because they allow the things that are expedient, the stuff that has to get done right now, to prioritize over the things that are important, the things that will drive long-term value for your business. So whoever's at the top has to be a nuts and bolts operator who focuses on day-to-day management of doing the things that matter and actually implementing the stuff. I mean, most of the things out there you can find on YouTube, you can find on podcasts like this. It's not a secret, but you just got to do it. You got to execute on it. And that really comes down to leadership.
Yeah, Seth, to piggyback on that, so in the 6 years that I was in the HVAC wholesale business, I think the biggest restriction for an owner was a few things. One, they didn't have a plan. It was every day wake up and figure it out, right? Do what they could to make a dime. And the ones that were willing to go to training and do business planning and partner with the BDRs and the service MVPs and the next stars of the world brought back all of that information and then set it in a folder on their desk, and it just sat there. So implementation, I think, is a huge one for us. We do a lot of training here, and I think that's kind of what separates Peterman from many is our willingness to take a few risks, try some new things, and if they don't work, go back to the drawing board and try again. So very good point.
Yeah, no, I think that's extremely critical. I always tell people, we grew our business in the early years by just listening to someone and just doing exactly what they say. There was very little time for, well, I don't think that'll work here, or it was just do it. What's the worst that could happen? And then you learn and then you figure it out. And it all goes back to what you said, Seth, is you just got to do something. And I think a lot of that too is related to what Steve said, is not having a plan of attack. Like, what is it that you want to do? Where have you guys seen, contractors maybe, have some success with building that plan? Like, where does that start? What is that thing that's going to move them forward that you guys have seen out there?
I can answer that with, I guess, a story and a quote. The story is the story of, Pygmalion, which is this Greek guy. It's an old story, but the short version is that he wants to get married, but he can't find a woman who's good enough for him. And eventually he carves a statue, and the statue is so beautiful that he falls in love with the statue, right? One of the sort of takeaway lesson from this is that we fall in love with the works of our own creations. Have you ever had somebody who has this idea and they're like, guys, I have this brilliant idea, and they tell you and it's stupid. And you're like, how do I tell you that your baby's ugly? That's not a good idea. And so the quote that goes along with that is a scripture from Isaiah that says there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. It's like, look, you should ask for real feedback from people, not in a way to where they don't want to tell you what the real feedback is. So, at the short version, it's just accepting with humility, I don't know everything. And even though I have these ideas that I think are so incredibly brilliant, it is possible that I'm an idiot. And if that's true, I would really like to know that. So, I think that good leaders are open to feedback. They don't just have this, strongman mentality where they're, charging roughshod over the top of everybody. You've got to take feedback. People around you are smart. They know what they're doing. And that's, one of the elements I see of all of this successful business leaders, like, you, Wyatt, Ken Goodrich, all these people, they listen, they surround themselves with really smart people, and then they listen to what they say and they take feedback, and they're going to take risks and ideas that aren't theirs. And so that's, I would say, a huge attribute for success in not just this business, any business, is surrounding yourself with smart people and then actually listening to what they have to say.
Yeah, Seth, I think, too, it starts at the top. And I would say this, being in or out of this company, not just because Chad's the one on this podcast, but Chad comes to us every year with a vision, and it's a 3 to 5 year vision plan of what do we want our company to be 5 years down the road, right? And let's start thinking and acting and hiring for 5 years from now, not for yesterday or today. And he comes to us with that, and it's an open book. Here's what I've come up with. What do you guys say? And we pick it apart. We look through it. We add. We take away. We edit. And he's more than willing to take that feedback, to your point. And I think that is a huge characteristic that goes a long way, and people want to follow.
Yeah, I think those are both great points. If you're not willing to listen, and if you're not willing to understand the this business is pretty darn simple. There really aren't any secrets. It's a pretty simple formula. And if you do the little things day in and day out, you'll eventually get to where you want to be. But I think that part of that too is knowing where in the hell you want to go, because so many people, I think, just wake up each day and have no idea where they want to go or what the future may look like, and then working that plan backwards. I think for us, working backwards has been key to our success of, all right, here's where we want to be. Now let's work it back to where we are and figure out all the things we need to do in between, which is hugely beneficial. Where have you guys found, I mean, when it comes to, okay, this is where I want to be, whether it's personal, whether it's in a business, what are some of the resources that you would offer up to listeners of like, hey, this is a good book, or hey, you ought to try this exercise, or what have you guys found in your own personal kind of journeys that's been a positive place or a thing that you continually do to kind of raise up your level of leadership or business acumen or whatever it may be?
One of the biggest things I've done, both professionally and personally, and it's kind of trickled over into my marriage, is starting every day with a gratitude list. I know we talk about that a lot here, and we start a lot of meetings that way too. But writing 5 things every day down that you're grateful for. And I got that originally in a Next Start class, and I've taken that and done it every day. 5 things I'm grateful for, and then 5 very simple goals for the day. And that can be a personal goal, that can be a health goal, that can be a religious goal, it could be a marital goal, relationships, whatever it may be. And just kind of gives you something each day to strive for. And something that I started doing was writing it on a board at home. And my wife, I'd come home from work and she'd start to see what I had and had not yet accomplished. And it started bringing us close together. And then she started doing it. And so to your point earlier, I think just every day having a plan, something to accomplish, get those endorphin hits, and set yourself up each day for success.
I love that. I think that's so good. It reminds me of an expression that says people overestimate what they can accomplish in 10 years and they underestimate what they can accomplish in 1 day. It's really easy to think long term, but it's really takes discipline to think, I have, the next 8 hours in front of me. What are the big rocks that I have to accomplish today? So I do something similar to Steve. I'm a religious person, so I pray. I try to get centered with God and just clear my head from everything that's weighing on me. And when I finish my prayer, I just think, okay, what are the most important things I need to accomplish today? Because there are things that I should get done today, but if they don't get done today, who's going to complain, right? But there are things I have to get done today if I'm going to be a good husband, a good father, a good employee for good leap. If I'm going to be the best version of myself, I have expectations for myself that are independent of what other people expect of me. And my integrity requires me that I fulfill the things that I know I need to get done today. And so I just try to clear my mind every day and say, all right, everybody else's opinion aside, what do I need to do today to make this a successful day? Like defining what a successful day looks like, I think is a big part of it.
No, I think those are both great points. And I think honestly, stuff that people can do today or tomorrow and really working on themselves. I think you brought it up at the beginning, Seth, like, if your business is going to grow, you've got to grow too. I think oftentimes we expect the business to grow while we're standing still. Or, hey, I'm the leader, I'm at the top, I don't have any work to do. And it's, how do we kind of set the example to inspire the rest of our team to go do much the same? And so I think that that's hugely critical when it comes to growing a business. One of the other things that I'd like you guys just to kind of talk about, mainly because you guys have seen it firsthand, is it's really easy to be good when times are good. It's entirely different when all of the things at play are maybe not with you or against you. And I think that everyone in the home services space can probably attest that this is a different time than it was, say, 2 or 3 years ago when we were kind of into what I call kind of the COVID years. How have you guys seen the kind of landscape out there as it relates to kind of building business? How have you guys seen that change? And then, I think we can tack on to that, what things are you doing differently than you may have done a couple of years ago?
Well, I'm reminded of a expression. It says, good times create soft people create hard times create tough people create good times, right? So we've been in good times, the time, pre-COVID and COVID, those were really good times if you were in this industry. I mean, if you were not making money during that time period in this industry, you're an idiot. Okay. I mean, the phones were ringing off the hooks. Everybody was spending everything on their house and there was money flowing everywhere. And that has cut off pretty dramatically. That money is dried up. And so now we see who the tough people are. And I don't mean like physically strong, like mentally tough people, who will stick with the business. At the end of the day, there's a lot of talk about all the PE money coming into home improvement, and that's all well and good and that's legitimate. But I think sometimes that's a distraction because people get talking about high-minded and finance and how they're going to turn or recapitalize, yada, yada, yada. At the end of the day, a homeowner needs their air conditioning system replaced. And somebody needs to go in there and create a positive experience and in a very efficient and affordable way, replace an HVAC system and then rinse and repeat every single day in your systems, in your processes. I mean, the system is the solution, right? If you read the email, the system is the solution. It's not you put a system into place and then slowly tweak and optimize that system. And I think that from a long time, all the prosperity, it was just covering all of the ineptitude and incompetence that was running amok in so many of these businesses. And once that prosperity drives up, suddenly the dark underbelly is exposed of, holy cow, our overhead's insane. Oh my gosh, we're terrible at doing this stuff. And you only have to really dig in and put systems in place to automate and take a more scientific approach to that process, right? Like if I have a system, I can iterate on it. If I'm just going off the cuff every single time, how do I iterate on that? How do I know what's going wrong? So I think the operators today who are like digging into the fundamentals, those are the ones who are going to come out really strong on the other side of this. And when things pick up again, they're going to explode.
Couldn't agree more, Seth. It's no secret. We're entering into an election, right? And that's a whole event in and of itself. But, credit requirements have become a little bit stronger. People have a little bit less cash. Credit scores are down. The weather in certain areas of the world are pretty mild. People are shopping, right? The list goes on. And so what we've had to do is really double down on our people, double down on our processes, to your point, fine tune those things. I can't tell you how much time I have spent kind of on that ground level with my people, out on ride-alongs, calling customers. I spent an entire Sunday yesterday doing just that. And, the old expression, things that got you here won't get you there, right? We're having to go back and continuously change the things that we've done in the past to try to overcome what we're seeing right now. And then inevitably, they'll pay dividends when things do start to get better.
If I could add one more piece to that as well, in terms of just fundamental systems and processes, there's a lot, and this is going to be self-serving because I'm the finance guy, right? But, look, if you're not offering financing every single time on every single job, you're just missing opportunities left, right, and center. We run the numbers on this, right? If a contractor, if he has a homeowner apply for financing and they get approved, 81% of the time they move forward with the project with that contractor. So what is the normal close rate in this industry? It's not 81%. It's a lot lower than that. So here's your takeaway. If you can get your homeowner to apply for financing and they get approved, 8 out of 10 times you're going to close that job. So you should be leading every conversation with, hey, I know you're wondering how much it's going to cost. We take cash, check, card. I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost, but I know it'll run about $149 to $249 a month. Once I get a better idea of it, I'll give you the exact numbers. Does that sound fair? Sure. When you get into the middle of the sale, before you get to the end of the sale, don't put financing off like it's a speed bump you got to get over. The middle of the sale, when they're still kind of thinking about what to do, you say, you know what, in 3 minutes, we can get a free sneak peek into what you qualify for, and it's not going to touch your credit. Why don't we go and do that real quick? Give people opportunities to buy. People like to buy. They don't want to be sold. And at the end of the day, the number one reason people say no is money. They don't have the money. They're not going to tell you that, right? I think I've shared this with Steve before, but if you're behind somebody in line at a grocery store checkout and their card gets declined, what do they say, right? They don't say, oh my gosh, I spent all my money on smokes. Now I can't afford food. Like they never say that. They always say, my bank. Oh my goodness, there's some problem with this card. It's not me, it's my bank, right? They never acknowledge, even to random strangers in the grocery store line, that they spent all of their money. So when you're in somebody's home, they're never going to tell you, I don't have the money for that. Or I should say very rarely. Usually they're going to make up smoke screen objections. I want to think about that. I think I'd like to get some more bids. I just need to do some more research. All of these smoke screen objections solve the money problem and they all evaporate on the tail end. And so it just baffles me when I hear somebody who's not offering financing every single time. It's like, do you realize how fundamental that is to your sale? And then the next question is, I'm going to guess you sell 95% base efficiency equipment, right? Yes, of course. You're selling the cheapest thing you have. You'll never sell efficiency equipment without financing. What do you think?
It's funny about that. I can think of endless examples of that exact situation. One came up yesterday as I was talking to this customer, and they were wanting, these massive discounts to try to compete with these other contractors who, can't do a next day install that are booked out several days. And I said, well, what if we just got you into that $125 payment that you were looking for? What would happen then? Well, that's great. I said, well, at our price point that we're currently at, we can make that happen. All I need you to do is X, Y, and on down the road we go. We never had to come off the price, and all of a sudden we got a sold job. And so agree completely. Well over 80% of the jobs that we sell here at Peterman are financed. And to your point, if you're not working that into every single conversation as you're providing those solutions to customers, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we've talked about on this podcast a number of times. It's so basic. It's extremely basic. And, I think that to your point, Seth, it's like most people don't have 12 grand laying around for something that they didn't oftentimes anticipate having to spend money on. I mean, think about it. Like even from your, we tell guys out in the field, don't shop with your own wallet, but for just a second, shop with your own wallet. Do you want to, do you have, 12 grand that's just laying around and, looking for a home? And, oh, by the way, I'd love to replace that thing that is in the closet. No. So again, make it easy for them to buy. And a lot of people are looking for a payment that fits within their budget for that month, that year, whatever it may be. So to me, you're just not offering the highest level of service if you're not offering financing to your customers and to allow them to, buy in a window that they can, make it work. And so I think when you start thinking like that, I think a lot of things can start to snowball really quickly. We've seen that where, it's not a fluke that we finance over 80% of our jobs. It's because we use that. That's just like Steve said, an example. That's what you're selling, essentially, is a way to buy this thing that they need for their home. And I think that is just increasingly more important as, again, the economy and different things like that, who knows where that's going to go. But if we can offer people a solution, then I think we're doing ourselves a favor, and most importantly, we're doing our customers a favor, which is great. I guess to that point, Seth, what are you kind of seeing for kind of market conditions like moving forward? Is this, I know interest rates and all of these things, like what do you see as kind of our next kind of 12 to 18 months looking like?
I mean, obviously the last 12 months, everybody knows we've had rate increases like crazy, sort of more steady the last, 6 months or so. Although we were expecting to see some significant rate reductions earlier this year, that they never happened, right? You can attribute that to a number of things, probably the Ukraine war, the Israel war, which made the U.S. more of a safe haven for investment. So a lot of money came back. And so that started creating additional inflation within the market. So they couldn't reduce those rates quite as quickly. Obviously, anybody who answers this question is just guessing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, my best guess. Knowing that,
I'm writing it all down, so better be right.
Considering this is an election year and it's probably the craziest election of my lifetime, who knows what happens in the next, 6 months or so. But in a normal world, just assuming that doesn't upend everything, what they're predicting is 2 rate drops by the end of the year, 25 bips. And then next year, probably an additional 3 to 4 rate drops, approximately 25 to 50 bips. So we're probably going to be down 0.5% at the federal funds rate by the end of this year. And then hopefully another 1% by the end of next year. So That would be significant. That would be really significant. So if you think about it, a 1% drop in the federal funds rate correlates to about a 3% drop to the homeowner's APR, right? So if we get a 1% drop, you're looking at 2 to 3% reduction in your APR that the homeowner is getting. So like today, and it varies. This is a very general rule of thumb. So it varies by whether it's secured or unsecured. So I'm referring specifically to unsecured home improvement. Let's take mortgages, for example, right? So your spread on a mortgage is typically, 250 to 300 bips, right? So if you're at a 5% federal funds rate, your mortgage is going to be right around 8%, right? So if we drop by that 1%, it doesn't just drop by 1%. It drops by a little bit more than 1%. So it would be significant, and it's even more exacerbated for unsecured loans. So if we had a 1% drop, then we would probably go from a 12.99 to like a 10.99. It would probably correspond to about a 2% drop, maybe even lower potentially at the, final rubber meets the road level to the homeowner. So I think the rate news we get over the next year or so is going to be very positive. I think what the economy does, you hear just so much variability in what people think the economy is going to do. And I'm sure you guys see this too. So I'll just share like my perspective, right? Yep. There's people who are saying it's doomsday and this is the biggest bubble pop and it's going to make the Great Recession look like it, like child's play. So you hear those people, right? And then you hear the people who are just like, we're the strongest we've ever been. We're going to explode and grow. Right. And the truth is probably somewhere in between. We're probably going to see some tailwinds, we'll probably see some headwinds. And you have AI, which is a huge productivity increase. I don't think that's been fully baked into the goods in terms of just the impact that can have on productivity for the average worker. I mean, it could be huge if it's applied correctly. And so a lot of smart people are looking at it. What was the number? It was something like, so AI really came out with ChatGPT 4 or whatever, or ChatGPT a little bit 12 or 14 months ago, right? Since that time, more than $1 trillion of investment has gone into AI technology. So in 1 year, $1 trillion, far and away, the number one source of investment into a new technology. And there's a lot of smart people looking at it, and they're going to find ways to really reduce a number of the rote work that people do every day. I mean, if you just think like I can upload a spreadsheet into ChatGPT and be like, hey, do this stuff to this spreadsheet, spits it out 30 seconds later. That's 2 hours of work. And granted, I'll probably have to spend 10 minutes going through and fixing a few little errors it made, but I mean, come on, it's unbelievable.
Are you able to talk to any plans that GoodLeap may have with the AI world?
As you know, we've been piloting an AI feature with Peterman. And in fact, I'd like to hear your positive feedback after this and then save the negative feedback for after we're not recording anymore. But no, we launched we're in pilot still, but it's far enough. We're about to launch to everybody what we call Gabby. And Gabby is a smart AI feature, which you can just text, So it's really, you just text in and then it texts back just to confirm you want to do this. You say yes, and boom, Gabby makes a change for you. So it's, as they say, the best UI is no UI. Like, why should I make you memorize a whole new system if I can just have you text me, this is what I want to do, and then we do it for you? So that's kind of the direction that we're moving in, to make things like insanely easy for, comfort advisors and selling text plumbers in the field who are actually actively working. Because one thing I know is that process friction kills sales. So anything you do to reduce process friction is going to increase your close rate. So even though all process friction is incremental and it might be small, any change that we can make that makes the life of the contractor, the homeowner, the comfort advisor easier is going to make us more usable, and it's going to increase the close rate. It's going to push those savings, or I should say the winnings, back to the contractor as well. It makes us a good partner.
Yeah, and while we have just a short list of things that we want to obviously throw your way and tweak and add to it, we're taking full advantage, and I've heard nothing but positive feedback on it. I mean, it just, the seamless transition between understanding why a loan didn't go, how do we get it in someone else's name, what was our approval rate for this day or that day, there's just so much there at your fingertips at any given moment that we're really excited to see how it unfolds and the full rollout, what it entails. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point that you both make, is just the speed at which you can process these things and get customers approved. We've used a number of different financing solutions over the years, and I think, one of the things that, while I'm not involved with it on the daily, the ease at which you can do business is a huge piece of the puzzle. Hell, I remember the days when you had to get like forms signed, hard copies by the homeowner, and you're running them out, and it's just a complete disaster. And I remember when we first started with Good Leap, and Steve's like, no, you literally just fill this out on their phone, and you're done. I was like, crap, that's a whole lot easier. So I think this feature is going to be a huge move in the right direction for sure, as we continue to push the financing, continue to push finding homeowner solutions for sure. Seth, I've got to ask, how did it get its name?
Well, I think that was just the name that a guy in our team, Jason Cragen, came up with. So let's call it Gabby. I don't think anybody disagreed. And they're like, okay, we'll call it Gabby. I'm guessing he has like a dog or a friend or somebody named Gabby. He thought it was just a good name,
I like it. Well, perfect. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, what's something that each of you would leave, a business owner out there, where, we've talked about times are what they are, and we need those tough people to kind of push companies through. What's one thing that you'd leave listeners with as something to maybe think about or investigate, or just really focus on as we move through the back half of this year and hopefully into a really good 25?
Seth, if you'll allow, I'd like to go first and make a shameless plug for Good Leap, if that's okay. I think that's where I would start, honestly. We spoke to implementation and vision planning and waking up every day and know what your big rocks are. But I think we saw one of the largest changes in the organization from a success standpoint and a revenue standpoint and a growth standpoint when we got really good at financing. And I've got to shamelessly plug Seth and Gail and Eric and all the folks at Good Leap for their continued partnership. And I truly mean that word when I say that. Partnership is what we've got with Good Leap, and they bend over backwards for us. And so that's a good place to start is find a good lender, find a good partner, and Good Leap's one of them for sure.
Thank you. I'm going to leave the same feedback, but in a slightly different context, right? Which is, it really comes down to your team. Like, who are the people who are good and who you can count on? And that's not just your actual team members at your company. That's who are my partners who actually do what they say they're going to do, I can rely on. Like, I can call them. They're going to fix the problems, because at the end of the day, it's so hard to run a business successfully out of your brain. Okay. Like, you're so limited. There's so many things going on in your business. And so if you can outsource so many of the tasks that are fundamental to your business being successful to partners, vendor partners who have your success aligned with their success, you're going to be really successful. And everybody knows who's listening to this podcast that one of the most frustrating things you can have is somebody who comes in, one of these vendor partners, they promise the world, and then they just fall down on their face and they screw up everything, and it costs you a boatload of money. It's incredibly frustrating. So, you talk to people around you who are successful and find out who do you use, why do you use them. And we're in a similar boat. We have to turn down contractors sometimes because they're not good partners. And, it's really just a pleasure to work with companies like Peterman. We're just on top of it, who know their stuff, who, it's just so easy, right? They say you have partners that you get to work with and partners you have to work with. And this is a get to work with, So we have partners we have to work with, but sometimes if you pick people who are fun to work with, who actually add value to your business, that's a great combination.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the partnership thing is something that gets overlooked a lot, and I think when you're able to build really strong relationships with your partners, I think you can see your business start to grow. I think the only thing that I would add in there is, your partner is not someone that you just beat down all the time for a lower price or a better deal or something like this. Like, it's a two-way street. Think about how you're treating your vendors. Again, are you one that they get to work with or that they have to work with? And I think that that's extremely important when you're thinking about those relationships. I know with our partners, we want to treat them like a really good customer. how would we do this? Yeah, there's times when we're negotiating things and trying to figure out things, but it's got to be a win for both sides. You can't always, celebrate getting the best of your partner or something of that nature, because there'll be a time when you need them and you want them to come through for you. So again, guys, I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy days to get on here and talk. I know that listeners, there's a ton of stuff within this episode alone that you can go start doing today to better your personal life or better your business. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so that you never miss an episode, especially the really good ones like today. And don't forget to leave us a review and let us know what you think. Remember, growth is a journey, and it's all about taking small steps forward every single day. Keep pushing yourself, embracing new challenges, and never stop striving for progress. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and remember, you can't stop the growth.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get connected, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. As always, keep growing out there.